Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Dobokar, and welcome to Politics in Perspective for this last show of July. It was an interesting week in politics, as always. Tulsi lowered the boom, and we'll talk about that. There you see what we call My Vitals. Hopefully, you get a chance to purchase the Lessons of the American Civilization and the Divided Era. We have, I think, a good show this week because we're going to talk about Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm just going to give you a little different angle so that when you're listening to all these people, you know exactly or what to watch. Then we'll have our difference maker interview with my friend Rod Martin. We're going to talk about investing under Trump and what the next 6 months look like with the stock market and other things. And then we're going to do a short political roundup on the Democrat Party, the gang who can't shoot straight. But let's get right to our opening segment and my opening statement. This past week, Tulsi Gabbard lowered the boom on the Democrats. She, working with whistleblowers, uncovered documents, which many believe were never seen or taken into account in the prior investigations. And those documents are evidence of knowledge and coordination between Barack Obama and DNI at the time, James Clapper, James Comey, FBI, and CIA. Brennan, even John Kerry was in the room. And they are evidence that they knew what they were doing, that they saw the fact that Trump had won. Their efforts to stop him from winning didn't work with the Steele dossier at all. And then their next step was their insurance policy, if you will, was to undermine his presidency. So in December, they have this meeting, and according to Tulsi Gabbard, and this is the different perspective that I would like you to see, Tulsi Gabbard says, well, why don't we bring up that slide and you can see it. This is a Facebook post of mine. It says, here's the lie the left is peddling. Read both lines. Gabbard, Obama, this is what she says that she uncovered. Obama says Russia meddled on behalf of Trump. Obama, in his denial, says essentially she's wrong, and he says the consensus is that Russia worked to influence the election. Now, what's important here is the difference in those comments, and not enough commentators are catching this. Obama did not directly deny the allegation that he had said Russia meddled on Trump's behalf. He's talking right past her. He's saying that everybody thought that Russia did something to meddle with the election. But what Tulsi Gabbard is talking about is when Obama and that cabal, even though there was the vast majority of the intelligence said that Russia didn't intervene for Trump, Tulsi's saying that what Obama and they started on December 6th and put into high gear in the next 45 days before he became the president and he was sworn in, that Obama said he meddled on behalf of Trump. So that's the difference, okay? The difference is that she's talking about meddling on behalf of Trump, and Obama right there is only talking about that Russia meddled. And so he's not lying, but he's not answering the question. Which brings me to my first point, other than what we just described there. My first point on this is anyone who says there's nothing to what Tulsi Gabbard is doing is either a partisan or is irresponsible or some other rendition of those two. We don't know all that Tulsi Gabbard has. She says that she's going to roll out documents. She says she's talking to whistleblowers. We don't know what those whistleblowers have said or done, other than to direct her where these documents resided. We don't know what else there is. So anyone who comes on and definitively says that Tulsi's lying or that there's nothing there or this investigation hasn't uncovered anything or doesn't know anything is just flat out a partisan or wrong, because we don't know what they have. We don't know what we don't know. So, yes, the left runs to their corner and says that Tulsi Gabbard's a liar. Hillary said she's a Russian asset, on and on. They're going to smear Tulsi Gabbard. But first thing, Obama didn't really deny it. Second thing is we don't know what she has, so we have to stay put. But in fact, these things are alarming. It matters because, yes, dirty politics has always existed in American politics. They didn't do it to George Washington as to any significant degree, but they did it to a large degree with Adams and Jefferson right after Washington, and it's been a part of politics ever since. And in that regard, they can get pretty nasty. However, the difference here and why this matters is they use the US government intelligence services to do it. And that is a bridge too far. That is too much. And so we have to wait and see what else there is. Do I think someone's going to be indicted? I don't know. Still too early to tell. In a couple episodes ago, John Solomon warned us that the reason why these indictments don't work is because most of them happen in DC, and that's 98% Democrat. So it's hard. He suggested that, in fact, this might happen in Florida where you might get a more balanced jury. We'll have to see. But just notice that what the left says today is everybody knows Russia meddled. The difference is that what Tulsi's saying is, no, they started a cabal conspiracy to say that they meddled on behalf of Trump. And there's that famous Adam Schiff appearance where he says Trump accepted their help. That's what caused the Mueller investigation, and on and on. Now, one of the players in here, it's hard to know who's lying the most, Brennan or Comey. But if we could bring up the Comey slide, Mr. Comey is a prodigious liar. I wrote about this in the Washington Examiner way back when. But James Comey was interviewed by Bret Baier in April of 2019. And in it, Bret Baier, among many other questions, said that he asked him, did you know that Christopher Steele was fired by the FBI? And Comey says, I didn't know it at the time. I think he's lying. But let's assume he didn't know it at the time. That summer of 2016 is when the Steele dossier existed, and they were using it. And Comey knew about the Steele dossier. Now, if you're the top spy in the United States and somebody comes to you with this, the first thing you ask is, can we rely on this witness? I'm an attorney. I do trial work. If there's going to be a witness, it's very important to me not just to know what the witness says he knows or she knows. It's also super important to me whether the witness would be credible. So you have this circumstance where James Comey is claiming that he never found out that his witness had been fired by the FBI. Do you believe that? Shouldn't that be the first thing he said? We're going to disrupt American politics? The first thing the FBI director should say, are you damn sure that this guy's credible? He's saying, in effect, he never asked that question. That's absurd. He knew who this guy was. He knew he was fired. He lied about it, and James Comey's been lying ever since. So what matters in this is that the players are lying about what they did. And the fact is, they did undermine the Trump presidency. That still lasts to this day. A couple of weeks ago, a poll came out that said that the majority of Democrats still think Russia and Trump colluded. They were successful. They did what they wanted to do. Now it's up to Tulsi Gabbard and Pam Bondi to expose this. And even if no one's indicted, voters need to see this. Independents need to see who the Democrat Party really is. That's my opening statement. I want to thank Patriot.tv for running it on their website and their Rumble page, AUN TV. I'm, of course, on YouTube and Rumble. And you can get all the links at the sponsor, politicalvanguard.com. We'll be right back with my difference maker interview. Welcome back to Politics in Perspective, everyone. Tom Del Beccaro. It's time now for our difference maker interview. And this week I have my longtime friend and all-around brilliant guy, Rod Martin. There he is. How are you? Great to see you. If you, let's keep his vitals up there. You can check him out at rodmartin.org. Or you could just be lazy and turn on Fox Business and watch him there virtually every day and live and learn. But he's got an interesting past. He was part of the crew that was it at PayPal where you were involved there. You went on to form your own company. You're a grassroots guy. You help people out throughout the country, and you're good enough to help us here today. And this will be a good interview because you're one of those guys who knows a lot about a lot, not just about a tiny amount. So I want to get right to some questions or maybe you could tell people a little bit about what your company does so they can understand your background.
Well, Martin Capital invests in technology companies primarily. We're very interested at present in space tech, in various internet applications, and actually in doing some of the things for insurance that we did for payments at PayPal. The insurance industry, for the most part, is very much in the 90s, and there's a lot we could do for it. So Martin Capital invests in things like that. We're trying to make the world better.
Okay, so let's talk about AI. Now that you say that, it's been my supposition, I've said for 2 decades or more, that productivity is understated. The advances in productivity because of computers, and it's very hard to quantify, but there's more productivity than is actually being stated. And when it comes to AI, that's going to accelerate.
Yeah.
I think about my career where I can do things on the computer as attorney and don't need a secretary, but you know more about this than me, given your background. Could you comment on that and your thoughts?
No, you're exactly right. And time prices don't even fully capture it. As brilliant as that concept is, and hats off to Gail Pooley and all those guys. But the truth of the matter is, I am infinitely more productive holding an iPhone in my hand than I could have possibly been 15 years ago or 30. It's just not even comparable. And to give you an idea of the scale, my one individual iPhone has more computing power than existed on all of planet Earth when we walked on the moon. So it's just amazing what that achieves. And one of the more extreme but amazing things is you've got kids in West Africa who a generation ago would have been dying of starvation or something terrible, who are now getting a college education on an iPhone off of Starlink. And it's just incredible. So yes, we're unleashing that golden age Trump keeps talking about. It's not always perceptible. It's not always quantifiable, but it's changing the world at an extraordinarily rapid rate. And AI is only going to ramp that up. I'm not overly concerned about job loss. I know a lot of our friends in the Valley are, and they're talking about universal basic income and all kinds of terrible, terrible solutions for this problem that probably doesn't exist. We've seen this play. We've seen how technology gets adopted, how it works through the system over time. There was a time when 80% of humanity worked on a farm. Today in the United States, that's about 1.2%. They're not all in a bread line. They were freed up to do higher value things. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. AI over the next 10 to 15 years is going to multiply productivity tenfold. And I can guarantee you it has probably already increased my productivity fivefold. And we're just getting started.
Yeah, as somebody who writes history books, I remind people that before the automobile, life was pretty slow, but the automobile and its related industries are 22% of the economy. And they were crying at the time that of the effects to jobs and stuff. And think about the computer at all. I mean, the computer was going to replace jobs, but now tech, as you describe it, is a huge percentage of the economy, right? So I just think it's going to open up and create different industries that we don't quite know about even today.
Now, let's take a couple of obvious examples. Travel agents. Did it disrupt travel agencies? Unquestionably. Are we all better off because it did? Yes. Everyone is better off because it did, with a handful of exceptions who went on to better work for the most part. And the same thing is true with stockbrokers. Nobody needs a stockbroker anymore except for very specialized things. So you suddenly have an opportunity for the masses to be able to trade, again, maybe in their Robinhood app on their iPhone or their Android, and they're able to actually participate in what Marx called the means of production. We have democratized the means of production through the ownership of equity across the population. And technology is what enabled that, along with some brilliance from Ronald Reagan.
There you go. All right. So the big, beautiful bill is passed. And you get asked what on Fox Business and the like, what you see coming out of this. So my personal belief is we're in a good space and the market's going to be in a good space. But you know that bill well. You know about the AI initiatives and the like. What do you see ahead economically?
Well, just looking at the tax cuts alone, our friend George Gilder wrote a great piece about this that I republished this week at rodmartin.org about how, the truth is over the last 40 years, what we've learned is that tax policy trumps everything. And he is a free trader, dyed in the wool, as am I, could not possibly question those credentials. And he's like, look, we've never really had free trade. That's always a myth. Germany's hitting us with 4 times the tariffs on autos that we hit them. India has 100% tariff on Harley Davidson. None of this is free. So, the tariff results are going to be minimal from an inflation standpoint and an economic standpoint, but the tax cuts will spark a boom. And that is not just because you kept us from having the biggest tax hike in American history by letting the Tax Cut and Jobs Act expire. It's not even just because you extended the tax cuts out to the horizon, and so you gave businesses predictability in tax planning. It's also all those other things. It's taking taxes off of overtime and off of tips and for most people off of Social Security benefits. It's just evil that Democrats force everybody into Social Security and then tax it on the back end too. And Trump just mostly eliminated that. We're going to have to take another whack at it, but it's almost there. And of course, you've got full business expensing and all these other provisions that are just going to spark a boom. And, if we don't just completely screw it up, the 2026 midterms are going to be amazing. And we're Republicans, so the odds are we'll screw it up. But Donald Trump is smarter than the rest of us.
All right. So sticking within that, what do you no, back to tech a little bit and the stock market, because you see these highs, you see how Nvidia and others are doing. And by normal standards, you wonder, where have they reached? Are they too high to keep riding with them? But on the other hand, isn't that market expanding so much that maybe the way we used to look at these things, we should take a second look at them? What are your thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The future is very bright. If you get the fundamentals right, these things can just explode. And Nvidia is a perfect example. 6 months ago, we are all freaked out by DeepSeek and how it was going to eliminate the need for Nvidia's high-end chips. Well, that's complete hooey. And I said so at the time. And actually, so did George Gilder. Come to think of it, he wrote a great piece on this at the time. And it's very simple. If the cost of a thing is reduced, the demand for it is thereby increased. Always. That's exactly why cutting taxes makes such a difference. You free up money for businesses to expand, for people to build houses, for all the things that you want to happen in the economy by not siphoning it off to Washington. And likewise here, if DeepSeek really did cut the cost of producing a good AI product, which it didn't, but let's pretend, if it really did all that stuff, then you'd want more NVIDIA chips, not less. And the market just explodes.
Yeah, I wonder why the market and these Wall Street people fall for claims from China about their productivity and the like. Is that I mean, I think, well, since when are they the paragon of telling the truth?
Well, China lies constantly. All their statistics are bogus. You kind of have to discern the tea leaves, if you'll forgive the term, to ever know what's really happening over there, which is why the State Financial Officers Foundation is doing such great work in trying to get a lot of these Chinese companies delisted from American stock exchanges. They aren't GAAP compliant. They're just completely ripping us off, and the money's going to the CCP. So, if we box them in on some things like that, we could achieve some reform. And that's something that no administration has been willing to even attempt until Trump. So that's all positive. But as far as China itself, the biggest number they've been lying about for a very long time is population. They have about 100 million fewer people than they're claiming even now. That group is almost entirely within the working age cohort. That means you have fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer young people, and it isn't coming out of its tailspin to support this ever growing percentage of the population that's retired. They don't have the money for it. Chinese consumption is just 37% of their economy, compared to double that for the West. They don't have disposable income that they can throw at that, and there are fewer and fewer of them. They are on track to lose 75% of their population by the end of the century. That means America would be a bigger country, and the economic catastrophe that ensues from that is just alarming beyond words. We won't see the worst of it kick in for another decade or so, but it's already underway.
Yeah, and I tell people that it's India that's going to be the second largest economy
Oh,
when
yeah.
they surpass China.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And India has a lot of the right ingredients. They have English common law. They have a pretty good judicial system. It could be better, but I think it's moving in the right direction. And they have a middle class that's larger than the entire population of the United States. Now, it's poorer than the middle class in the United States, but still, it's there, and that's growing. And they have a huge opportunity to bound forward. I'm very excited about AUKUS and the Quad and all the things we're doing to tie together with India more. They are a natural ally against China and Iran and Russia, of course, if Russia has to continue to be an enemy, God forbid. And these things all become better and peace more likely and the economy much stronger if we can pull something together with India that supplants China and its totalitarian regime.
No doubt, folks. You got to follow this guy at rodmartin.org or on Facebook or on Twitter. Uh, let's keep going. I think the stock market's going to be at 48.5 December 31st. Are you allowed to make predictions like that, or what do you think?
No, I agree. I think that's right. And I think it's just going up from there. There's no need for us to have a recession anytime soon. You know very well that before Reagan broke the back of the inflation that gripped this country for so long, we averaged a recession from World War II to the beginning of Reagan about every 2.5 years. And that has not been our reality ever since the Reagan tax cuts and economic reforms. And there's no reason we can't continue in prosperity for a very long time. And Trump's laying the foundation for that.
Yeah, these are policy choices. We had very high marginal tax rates, which distorted investment. You'd get these recessions. We didn't have remember what just inventories. Before the computer really took hold, it was unclear for these national companies exactly where the inventory matched versus demand for the next, and you had all these problems. But if you have the right policies, you can grow. Speaking of which, Trump's the Bitcoin president. So what some say it's headed to 200,000. What do you think? And by the way, do you even like it? Do you invest in it? What do you think people should think?
No, Bitcoin's great. And 200,000, easy. I mean, we will get there and we'll go higher than that. I'm more interested, I have to say, in what 5 states have just done, including Texas and Florida, in making gold and silver legal tender again. And the concept is no different from early 19th century state issued banknotes that were 100% backed by gold and silver, but it's updated technologically. So you can spend it with a debit card. You can spend it through an app on your phone. You can utilize it, and you don't have to make change for it because that's all done in software. It's not like you're carrying around a gold bar or something. And that's tremendous. There's a real opportunity, I think, if we can achieve a certain degree of adoption, for that to just go crazy, and you almost get an inverse of Say's law, where good money drives out bad. So I'm very bullish on that, and I think what you'll see is a divergence between the price, so a spread between monetized gold and bullion, which basically functions as a raw material at that point. And there's going to be a huge opportunity for the people who get ahead of that curve.
So Jerome Powell, I can't let you get away without talking Jerome Powell. My first op-ed for Fox was Fox Business about Jerome Powell. It did super well. He literally, remember the 60 Minutes interview when Scott Pelley asked him, so you flooded the market with money, did that cause inflation? And he said no. So I'm thinking that at this point, because apparently money's immune from the laws of economics.
It is.
Where are you on interest rates, and who do you like going forward?
I don't think that Powell would admit to being a devotee of modern monetary theory, but he might as well be. And he's certainly a political hack, if not. He did flood the market with money. He also kept interest rates lower than he should have to help Biden and Harris. And now he's keeping them artificially high against Trump, just trying to bring about a recession if he possibly can and torpedo the Trump economic project, which isn't going to work because it's too robust for him to kill. And he can't get a consensus on the Board of Governors to actually raise rates. So he is just a terrible Fed chair, and we've had a bunch of bad Fed chairs, but he may be the worst. He may make Yellen look good, or Arthur Burns, for heaven's sake, and he's got to go. So, I don't know if he'll go early or not, but I think Trump has some great people to pick from, and he's looking at some really great ones. I think Scott Bessent deserves a serious look. I know he doesn't want to move him from Treasury, but I think Howard Lutnick could do great at Treasury. You move Bessent to the Fed. If not, then I would suggest they look a little bit outside the box and talk to Larry Kudlow. I think he'd be a tremendous Fed chairman.
Yeah, of course I love him for a variety of reasons, but he speaks with such clarity. One thing that Jerome Powell said that I do agree with, he said it last September when they were talking about interest rates, but and it was sort of overlooked because the news only wants to know about interest rates. And given your background, I wanted to ask you about it. He said the biggest threat was quantum computing and the risk to I don't know if he said quantum computing, but the risk to the banking from hacking and the like. You're in tech, you understand tech. What is how big a threat is that going forward? And do are we out in front of this as a nation, or what's your thoughts?
It's always a race. I mean, we had this exact problem at PayPal. You may recall that, very early in the PayPal story, we had Russian hackers coming after all the money in the system. And turned out they were actually based in San Jose, California, but they were Russian hackers nonetheless. And Max Levchin, who invented basically everything at PayPal, our brilliant chief technology officer, who's had a brilliant career since, actually was a kid in the Soviet Union in Ukraine, immigrated over
Wow.
here at 15, speaks better English than I do. Amazing guy. Max actually got MIT Innovator of the Year in 2004 for the software he designed not to run PayPal, but to catch the Russian hackers, which just illustrates the race. No matter what new technology you introduce, it opens the door to vulnerabilities that you then have to plug. There's no getting around it, and I don't think there is any lack of people who are working on this problem.
I say the same thing about voter integrity. That is a battle that is never won, because even if you or a war that's never won, even if you successfully put your finger in the dike somewhere else, we have to be vigilant with that going forward at every moment.
Well, we don't have the option of avoiding electronics in finance, but we absolutely do in voting. It is absurd that we would ever have a voting machine of any kind at all. There is none you can possibly have that isn't hackable in some way. It's just absurd and obscene. And the reason is something known very well to you, but not necessarily to your listeners, which is most of the election system is run by very, very novice level people. They're volunteers or they're random employees at a county clerk's office or whatever. They can't review the software. They can't possibly keep track of any hacking. They don't have any way to correct it if they could. You have to have paper ballots. You need to have same day voting. Early voting is a disaster. You must not have mail in ballots. That's just a license to steal. Honestly, you want early voter registration and you ought to have inked thumbs like we did in Afghanistan and Iraq. That worked in third world
Mexico.
war-torn countries. Mexico, yes, this is not hard. It is easy to have election integrity. It still won't be perfect. You can cheat with paper ballots. The thing is, we've had hundreds of years to figure out every single way you can cheat with a paper ballot. And so we know exactly what to look for, and you can train volunteers on it. And that's the key. It's not just that they can maintain integrity, it's that they can maintain public confidence in the system. And the electronic voting machines will never permit for that.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's only going to be more important when we do this, the more they want to push for this. You have a country of Argentina. What is it? I want to say 45 million people, and they did the whole election in one night on
Yeah.
paper ballots. It's
And
not
we
a question
used to
of,
here. And not only did we used to here, we used to before we had all the fancy electronics. It's only in the age of the fancy electronics that we get 3 a.m. ballots and we get, the count stopped in 5 states all at once in the middle of the night for no good reason. And we don't know the outcome of elections for weeks at a time. That's absurd. George Washington was doing better than that. Abraham Lincoln was doing better than that during a civil war, for heaven's sake. And here we are with our fancy computers, and we're going backward. Well, there's a reason we're going backward. There's corruption in the system, and you've got to get it out.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so broader question, the Trump movement. You've been in grassroots for a long time, one of the many hats you wear. Uh, so the Tea Party movement expressed frustration. Trump got out in front of it, in my view, sort of mobilized it. But so much of it, or a large amount of it, is invested in him, the person.
Yeah.
What do you see needs to happen going forward? Or you talk about how Republicans can bungle things. Um, does this run
We
out
have an
with
almost
him?
infinite number of ways to do that.
Uh,
And we always find them all. No, I think we're in good shape. We've got some great leaders coming up. We've got a deep bench. Marco Rubio's been my senator since he became a senator, and I really didn't expect such greatness out of him as Secretary of State. But he has really found his highest and best use, and
right?
probably is a good candidate for the presidency. I think J.D. Vance is amazing. I think he's an incredible guy. I think he's got an incredible story, and he is more articulate than just about anybody in American politics. My governor, Ron DeSantis, is amazing, absolutely fantastic. He ought to be president. I don't know if he's going to get to be. And then, of course, there is our dear friend, Senator Ted Cruz, who isn't really on anybody's radar right now, but I guarantee you he's thinking about a run. I just know he is. I haven't talked to him, but I know how he thinks. And he would be amazing. He would be incredible. And honestly, he would have been an incredible nominee in 2016, but for this amazing whirlwind that is Donald Trump coming in unexpectedly. So, we've got a deep bench, and that's just a few highlights. This cabinet is really a group of rock stars, and I think we're going to be very happy with where the movement goes from here. What is certain is this: the rhino problem we have fought my whole life is not necessarily finished, but receding. We have really upped the quality of our office holders overall. And there are some pockets like California where that isn't really true. But for the most part, the country's doing a lot better than it was 20 years ago in terms of quality of Republicans. And the beauty of that is you can't really have a choice if you don't really have polarity. And the Democrats are giving us plenty of polarity now that they're openly socialists. They were always socialists, but now they're open about it. And our guys have to stand strong and offer, as Phyllis Schlafly would say, a choice, not an echo.
Yeah, it's I tell people once socialism in history infects a party, it doesn't go away. It controls them. And look, Obama's father was Marxist. Harris's father was Marxist. Buttigieg's father is a Marxist. Now they're talking about a big tent by electing this guy from New York City. And I love New York. I'm originally from New York. I think it'll be terrible for the city, but I think it'll be great for the midterms. What do you think?
Well, and it'll be great for Miami because we're going to get a lot of their finance and a lot of their best people, as we already have been, and Texas will too. But yeah, they have drunk deeply of this red Kool-Aid. That is not going to go away anytime soon. That's very dangerous. When the Labor Party displaced the Liberals in Great Britain, it didn't seem like that big a deal because it's not like they were going to attain meaningful power anytime soon. But the day came in a
Right.
2 or 3 party system where eventually everybody gets their turn. And Clement Attlee ruined Britain in just a handful of years in irretrievable ways. And so we have to actually hope for something better here. And I think the model is what we saw in the 80s, which gave us such a conservative consensus that men like Bill Clinton and Tony Blair arose. And when the turn change came, you got guys who were at least pretending to be conservative, and they were softening those hard Marxist edges. And if Hillary had won, it would have been a completely different deal. I mean, Hillary's a true believer. Hillary actually upgraded Alinsky's thought And I mean, she is a hardcore Marxist, always was. Bill believes the same things, but Bill is a practical politician and he knew what he needed to do to win. So, if we can get to a point where the Democrats are moved back enough toward the middle that we can survive their inevitable comeback someday, and if we can postpone that comeback as long as possible, I think we can be okay. And I feel good about our bench on the Republican side.
All right. Well, the one thing you're not good at is stretching things out because we've already used up the whole 30 minutes and you've been awesome. Tell people, and I'm on his email list. I don't actually follow that many people, but because of his tech background, which is today, tomorrow, and forever, you got to follow him. So, Rod, if you can just tell people where they can follow you.
Well, on X, go to @RodD.Martin. But you can find that by going to rodmartin.org. At rodmartin.org, we have daily geopolitical analysis across a wide range of issues. You just must read it. We have analysis on Russia and Ukraine out today that runs to 3,000 words. It's serious stuff. And we give you the facts that you aren't going to get anywhere else, and we give you the analysis that you're not going to get anywhere else. And at rodmartin.org, up in the left-hand corner, you can click on the link to my X. We're at 250,000 followers now. Nearly all of that is since February. It's just amazing, and it's growing like crazy.
All right, you're awesome. I enjoy watching you on Charles Payne's show, and more people should know. Everybody, hope you enjoyed that, Rod. I hope you'll come back because again, I love the fact that I can ask you just about any question and you have a good answer. Maybe you don't have a good answer how to fix the Yankees because nobody does, but just about every subject. Right. Thanks, everybody, and we'll be right back with more Politics in Perspective. All right, I hope you enjoyed that with Rod. Like I said, he's a guy who knows a lot about a lot of things. Now let's do our political roundup and talk about my view of the next 6 months of Trump. But before we do that, I just think it's hysterical where the Democrats are. If we can put up this slide, the Democrats this past week put up on the left, you see that grocery prices have reached record highs in 2025. And in the upper left-hand corner, it's kind of small, but it says Trump's America. The Trump White House responded with the fact, and you can see it right there, that that big increase happened under Biden. And under Trump, which you see to the right of the pink, it's been flat, still going up a bit, but record highs occur because anytime there's an increase off the record set by Biden, it's going to go up. But prices have moderated significantly. But this is the gang that can't shoot straight. But let's talk briefly about the next 6 months under Trump, because I was asked this on an interview that I did recently. They said, what do we have to look forward in the next 6 months? Well, Trump is still doing things. Most of you know that my wife's in the news business, and she said she's fond of saying that under Biden, there wasn't a lot of breaking news because Biden didn't really do everything or very much. Yes, what they did was behind the scenes and others were pulling levers and they didn't want anybody to know that. But there wasn't a lot of breaking news, so the news was easier. With Trump, there's breaking news all the time. So I expect him to keep going and try and refine and do better things. But I think the discussion is going to start to move forward as the economy does better and better And the stock market, you got my prediction for where the stock market is going to be by the end of the year. I think it's at 48,500. The good economic news is really going to start making an impact in the next 6 months. And as a result, the chirping on the sideline, which, if you remember, when he first got into office, he was there a week and they were whining about egg prices, as if within a week he could have changed the egg price problem, which came out of the Biden era, where he killed all those chickens, right or wrong. But it's not Trump's fault. The economy now is in a good place because the tax code has been made permanent. There were those additional cuts of taxes for seniors, wage earners, and the like. You're going to see wages outpace inflation, deregulation. And so the good news from the economy will dominate the next 12 months and probably the next 18 months, with record highs in the stock market. So the next 6 months of Trump are going to be hard on the Democrats, because the areas about which they can complain will diminish and diminish. And you will also see some of these peace deals finally getting through, I think, as well. So all in all, the next 6 months is going to be kind of more quiet politically, and maybe you should go about enjoying your life instead of always worrying about politics, which is sort of my hope for every presidency, that politics isn't at the center of it. But then again, I wrote The Divided Era, which talks about why it is. So anyway, thanks so much for joining again this week. Always a pleasure to have you here. Please share this with your friends. Thanks again to Patriot.tv, AUNTV. Go to politicalvanguard.com, which has a news service for you to get the top stories each morning. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.